girls don't deserve a relationship. A lot of girls don't deserve marriage. And if you are going to get married, you need to have some things in place. And I know this is kind of controversial, but this is what I tell guys. I tell them you need to be at least 35 years old, have had sex with 50 girls.
Now that you've seen this clip, let's break it down. Getting married at 30, 35 plus seems to be the common theme from modern dating coaches. This is actually misleading and dangerous for young men to hear, because this advice is immoral. What if I told you it's actually righteous and beneficial to get married when you are young? Good things do happen to those who wait, but not to those who wait too late. And in fact, better things happen to those who take action with the right intention. If you are watching this and you are in your late teens or in your 20s, you're a young man, my hope from this video is that you take it seriously to find a good woman in your youth, when you're at the peak of your virility, your strength, and your youth. And you grow old with her and you honor her for the rest of your life. Because the longer you leave that decision, the harder it gets. Because as the old saying goes, where have all the good ones gone? The good ones, and I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about men too. The good ones really get picked up and taken when they're young, because they don't waste their time. When you get into your 30s or 40s and you're trying to look to commit, there will usually be leftovers, and it is going to get harder. Not impossible, but harder. So if you are in your 30s or 30 plus and you're watching this, don't waste any more time. Take courtship and marriage seriously and find a good spouse as soon as possible, because the clock is ticking. So let's break down the modern dating lie. Should men get married at 30 plus, or is it better to get married when you're young? And what I'm going to do is make a series of debunking modern dating advice, and this is the part 1. So sit back and relax. It's going to be a long one. Enjoy. Now, modern dating advice has done more harm than good, as I've written here in the video. One of the ways it misleads men is encouraging them to remain single throughout their 20s and only focus on work, on yourself, or just trying out different women. And then once you become 30, now you can consider marriage because the beautiful women are waiting for you. And this is the lie that they're being sold. It's the same thing with feminism when it encourages women that they can pursue the career throughout their 20s, and then Mr. Right, Mr. Handsome is waiting for them on the other end when they're older. When the reality is, traditional Christian men, masculine men, do not want career women. They want a traditional feminine woman, right? And those women, unfortunately, pay the price with their time. But the same thing goes for modern men. If you think that at age 30, 35 or 40, you are going to find yourself a 19, 20 or 22-year-old super attractive woman that wants to marry you for you, you are living in fantasy. That is transactional and it is a pure gold digging relationship. Do women like older men? Yes, but only by a few years. Context matters. Age gaps matter. Do men like younger women? We all do. But context matters. We like younger women a little bit. A little bit younger to where it's also relatable. When you get into these double-digit age gaps, you're getting into transactional relationships. How can a 20-year-old and a 20-year-old woman and a 40-year-old man grow old together and relate to each other? They can't. Because a beautiful 20-year-old woman at the peak of her beauty wants an attractive young man in his 20s, maybe a little bit older than her, 23, 26, she can also grow old with and share her life with him. She doesn't want a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old. No young, beautiful woman wants that. And everybody knows those 30 to 40-year-old men that are going for really young women past their age gap, those men are lustful and desperate. It's that simple. And that is a lie that men are told. Don't find a woman in your 20s, just live for yourself. And then when you get older, the beautiful young women are waiting for you. That's not how it works. So we hear common phrases from these modern dating coaches when you're young. sleep around, gain experience by being with many women. You're only young once. Settle down when you're older. Marriage is slavery. Commitment is boring. Focus on yourself. You don't need a woman when you're young, right? And women prefer older men. Yes, women do prefer older men, but by a few years. Past a certain age gap, 3 years, 5 years, 7. When you're getting into 10, 15, 20 plus age gaps, it's not normal, it's not natural. That's not genuine desire, is it? But that's a lie that lustful, insecure, misguided men are sold. Why is this a dangerous lie? Simple. Number one is that you have a higher risk of developing baggage. Why am I saying this? Because we have to look at on a generalist level, not on a specific level. Most men and women who didn't find a spouse in their 20s, what were they doing? Partying, clubbing, living for themselves, hooking up, sleeping around, getting involved with the wrong people, going through multiple heartbreaks and breakups or even very toxic situations. And that adds up on your psyche. It takes an emotional toll out of you. It can damage you physically, emotionally, for years. And then you come out of that, you get older, and now you want to find someone who's good for you, but you have all of these problems. Bitterness, unforgiveness, shame, holding on to the past. You maybe have a few good ones that got away. You're still attached to them. You're damaged. That makes it very dangerous. Are there outliers? Is there a small percentage of men and women who are in their 30s and single, and maybe they only dated one person for a few years, maybe two, maybe they've never dated anyone, right? They just lived a secluded life, or they had health problems, or other things were going on. There's exceptions. But the general rule is most men and women do away with their youth in their 20s and they give it away to a degenerate lifestyle. When they're older and the biological clock starts ticking, now they want someone to commit to. You reap what you sow. It's going to be harder to find someone, and you are at a higher risk of developing baggage, because very few men and women are able to just be single throughout aged 18 to like 30, 32, 34 and not hook up and not get into a degenerate lifestyle. You're at risk. That's why it says in the Bible, it's not good that a man should be alone. God makes a helpmeet for a man, husband or wife. You go through life together. And if you're single and alone and you have the lustful, all of these temptations that exist in today's generation, as a man, you are more at risk to fall for that than self-control, because no one's teaching you otherwise. The second thing is you are at a higher risk of falling into sexual sin. So if you leave it all these years, you're not just risking getting into bad relationships and having to heal from those breakups and things like that, but it's falling into sexual sin, because everybody has these sexual needs. That's why you're meant to have a wife. Every woman's meant to have a husband, someone you love, someone you grow old with. So if you've been single all these years, chances are you're not staying chaste and sexually pure. As a man, there's a higher chance that you're going to fall into masturbation, pornography, developing unnatural fetishes and fantasies, because you're craving commitment, you're craving a woman but you don't have. Or you're trying to gratify that lust in an unhealthy way by sleeping around, hooking up, and you damage yourself. You can develop STDs as a result of that lifestyle as well. So you don't just develop baggage, but falling into sexual sin gives you more shame, more to heal from. That's what happens when you leave it all those years. The third thing is, understand that good women in their 20s are already going to be snatched up to a good man. Or if they are single in their 20s, a good woman is going to want a guy who's in their age group. They don't want a 35 or 40-year-old man, unless they're a gold digger or they've got daddy issues or something seriously wrong with them. They're immoral, right? Or they're misled into thinking that. But normal, healthy women do not want that. So if you think that you can go through your 20s and once you hit 30 or 40, now you can find a good, young, hot woman, very, very rare exceptions. Be careful. The next thing is, the reason why this is a lie, is that only gold diggers in their 20s will seek out a man with a 10-year age gap. If you want to go for younger women and you're an older man, try it and tell me how it works out. A lot of those women have ulterior motives to be with such a man. It's not right. I mean, just put things into perspective. Imagine you are a father and you have an 18-year-old daughter, and she comes home and says to you that a 35-year-old man wants to take her on a date. I don't know about you, but if that's my daughter in the future, I'm pulling out the shotgun and the shovel, and I'm going to bury that man. It's disgusting. Do you not see how wrong that is? And as Jesus said, do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. If you wouldn't want an older, creepy man dating your daughter or your sister, if you're an older man, don't go for women that are really, really young. It's weird. Okay? And if you want to go down that route, you reap what you sow. You'll get yourself a gold digger. You tell me how that works out for you, yeah? You check back on me in a few years. The next thing is, waiting until your 30s to get married increases the odds of you becoming selfish. And you might be thinking, but Christian, how can that be? I'll tell you. If you do not have a woman in your life, who are you living for? Especially if you don't have God, you're living for yourself. And this is the first generation that has become so brainwashed, so individualistic, that all they live for is themselves. I'm doing self-improvement. I'm bettering myself. I love me. I'm me. And if you've conditioned yourself over 5 years, 10 years, your entire 20s, to be single, to put your needs first, to put yourself first, it's very difficult to then come out of that and then learn to love a woman sacrificially and protect her and provide for her and honor her, because you've been living for yourself. That's all you know. So you can develop high levels of narcissism, of neuroticism. You become more selfish, more vain, more superficial. You're less likely to want to commit because you think you're going to miss out on a lifestyle. And that's one of the most dangerous things of living this way. Back in the day, everybody lived for community. Men and women served each other. They served the children. They served the elders. You served God. You honored your nation. You honored your culture and your heritage. These things were the way people lived. And nowadays, you think you're going to live for yourself as a man and it's not going to have consequences on your life? Think twice. It will. And it won't be good. And I've seen that a lot with men, because I've coached over the years, men 30, 40 plus. And there's a higher risk there of them being selfish and prideful because they've lived for themselves for so long. It's difficult to pull someone out of that. It's no different than with a woman who's been a career woman from 20 to 32, and she's been independent, Miss I don't need a man. It's very difficult to get out of that lifestyle when you've built up those habits for decades. And as a man, it's no different for you. If you don't place an importance on commitment, on marriage, on monogamy, on finding a good woman, and you leave that, chances are you've been living a very selfish life. You've not been living outward. You've not been giving. You've not been serving. You've been focusing on you. And you become selfish. And finally, the longer you leave marriage, there's a higher likelihood of you lowering your standards and committing to a woman out of desperation. One of my favorite quotes from Jim Rohn is, and he's the guy who actually trained Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn said, you can make a decision in life one of two ways. Inspiration, desperation. See, when you're inspired to make a decision, you sit on it, you think on it, you pray on it, you gauge if it's right. You're peaceful, you're calm when you make that choice. But when you're in despair, you're rushing. You're running to the finish line. You're worried, you're fearful, you're anxious, you're stressed. And the choices you make from that place of mind bears very bad fruit. And a lot of men, they get very cocky when they're young. Oh, I'm good looking, I'm building up my career, my wealth. Because look, most men do not peak financially till their 30s or 40s. But as a man, you will peak physically aged 18 to 25. You look at the top militaries in the world, the youngest men and the strongest men that they train are in that age group. When are women the most fertile and most beautiful? 18 to early 20s, right? Late 20s, early 30s, women's fertility drop. As a man, your fertility will drop later, late 30s, early 40s. You can still father children, but the reality is you're going to be older. Can you take care of yourself and age well? Yes, you can with lifestyle changes. But when you're younger, you're still more virile. When you're younger, you're healthier overall. Okay? And when you leave that and you leave your 20s, you get into your 30s, now things slow down. You start to look around, more people get committed, more people are married, more people are having kids, and you don't have that. And your clock starts ticking. And you go, uh-oh, I need a woman in my life, I'm alone. That's when you start getting desperate. And that's when guys will take any woman that comes their way because they've had their fun. You can't just point a finger and say, oh, those girls that are party girls and club sluts, now they want to settle down and find Mr. Right. Well, the guys that are 30 plus that were living that lifestyle, they're in the same boat. You're sitting there thinking, where am I going to find a good woman? They're all married. They're all taken. They're all young. Damn it, what do I do? So your dating options are smaller. The beautiful, good women are mostly taken. There is the rare exception of the good ones that are still out there in your age group. They're going to be hard to find. You better be a good man if that's the case, because good women are going to vet your character hard. Any red flags you have, you're gonzo. They don't want anything to do with you. So this is why most men, they get older, they're desperate, they lower their standards. Any woman that will have them, they'll take them. You know, I've seen guys that are 35, good looking, successful, and they're dating single mums that have like 3 kids because they've got no standards for themselves. Or they're trying to go for younger women that are like 20 who are gold diggers and they're miserable. They're hurting themselves because these guys are too prideful. But look, if you're a 35-year-old man, marry the 30-year-old woman. She can still have children. Maybe not a large family because the older she leaves it, the harder it is, but you can still have a family. Just don't waste any time with it. And I see a lot of men, they get to that age and they're desperate. They're rushing it. And it dawns on them that all those beautiful women that they were clubbing with and partying with and sleeping around with in their 20s, they actively were contributing to hurting those women and themselves. And they can never go back and find those beautiful, attractive women. So it's a dangerous lie to waste your youth being single and independent as a man. There's a price that comes with that. And sooner or later, you have to pay it in full with your time. So this is a warning to the younger men. You're watching this and you're in your 20s. Don't think you've got the rest of your life. I've been on YouTube now for about 4 years. I've done over 100 case studies of men and women over the years, different cultures, different ages. And one thing I have seen across the board of men that are 30 to 35 plus, they always tell me the same thing. Christian, I wish I took relationships seriously when I was in my 20s. I have stories from men in their 30s that they pushed away those good women they had in their 20s that wanted a family, wanted to commit to them, because they wanted to go off and be independent and club and party and travel by themselves and find themselves. And they'll get married when they're older. And now they look back, those women, that woman that they let go of, she's married to a good man. They can't get her back. They're miserable. They're depressed. They're unhappy. They're desperate because they lost those opportunities. If you think rejection hurts, regret stings even more. You can't get that time back. So do not waste your youth, young men that are watching. Take it seriously, gentlemen. Take your 20s with the utmost delicacy. Be very cautious with the choices you make. Find a good woman when you're young. Don't wait till your 30s and 40s And then you're, right, it's time to settle down. What do I do? It gets harder when you get older. Now, let's go to the solution. Let's go a little bit harder on this. Let's look at the truth. So the lie you were sold is get married at 30 plus. But the truth is, it's better to marry when you are in your 20s. Why is this true? First of all, let's look at the Word of God, which is our authority on this. The Creator loves us. He designed men and women. He knows our needs. He knows our wants. He knows how we're built. Follow His blueprint and you're going to live an easier life in accordance to His will. See, the Bible advises men and women to marry when they're young. And here are some Bible verses to support that claim. Genesis 2:18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. A helpmeet means a support. Remember, man lead, woman follows. Man is the head of the home, woman is the heart of the home. She assists her man, she nurtures her man. They love each other. Where is it saying in the verse, it's not good that you should be alone when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, but it's good to be alone when you're in your 20s. When you're in your 20s, be single, but in your 30s, it's not good to be alone. It doesn't say that. It says it's not good to be alone, period, as a man. Never. Meaning 18, 22, 27, 37, 40, men need a companion, men need a woman. Husband and wife accomplish more together. We are made for each other. Society wasn't founded on selfishness or singleness. It was founded on communities built by families. And a family is made up of a simple unit. Husband and wife plus children equals family. Multiply families equals nation, society, humanity. It is not good that a man should be alone. So if you're in your 20s, take that on board now. Self-correct yourself. Don't sit here thinking, you know what, I'll consider that in a few years. No. Take action now. Don't let your learning lead to only understanding. Let your learning lead to you taking action. Do. Don't try, just get it done. It is not good that you'll be alone as a man. And the longer you leave it, the harder it is. The word of God is clear. The next verse. I will therefore that younger women marry, bear children and guide the house, giving none the occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, so that no one should speak bad of them. That is what God wants for women, to marry young and bear children. Marry young. Common sense. But what about men? Should men marry young? Let's look at it. Proverbs 5:18 says, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth, for thy youth. What does this imply? So, fountain be blessed, it's talking about enjoy the sexual satisfaction of being married. You can be intimate and passionate with your wife. And it says, rejoice with the wife of your youth, implying you married her in your youth. Your youth is when you're young, when you're a young man. 35, 40 is not youth. Late teens, 20s, that's youth. There we have it. Young men in their youth should marry as well. So it's not good that you should be alone. And we know that both men and women should get married when they're young. Okay. The next one. Isaiah 62 verse 5. For as a young man marrieth a virgin, so shall thy sons marry thee. And as a bridegroom rejoiceth over the bride, so shall thy God rejoice over thee. Translation. As a young man marries a virgin, your sons shall marry you. The bride and the bridegroom rejoice in marriage, and God over you. God is happy. He's full of joy when young men, young women marry. Couldn't be any more obvious than that. And finally, 1 Corinthians 7:2. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, hooking up, sleeping around, casual sex, let every man have his own wife and every woman her own husband. Why would you waste your 20s hooking up, damaging your mind and body, giving bits of yourself to different women, or for the ladies, giving it to different men, when you find that one good person for you, you commit for life, and you meet each other's needs, and you learn to grow and please each other as time goes by. You become one flesh, right? Could it be more obvious that you should be married when you're younger? It doesn't say to avoid sleeping around and hooking up, jump from partner to partner. Go through your entire 20s sleeping around. Grind, focus on yourself, bro. It doesn't say that. It says to avoid that lifestyle, get married. What does that imply? Sooner you do it, the less chance you fall into that temptation. So, now that we've got the word out the way, let's look at it. Why is it important to marry young? Simple. Number one is that there is less risk of baggage. Look, I know I have family that watches my videos, right? My uncle and aunt, they've been married for 40 years now. They have grandkids and everything. They were each other's first and only. That is an example to follow. When you marry young, chances are you're going to have a lower body count. Because you've been hurt less and you've been through less relationships, you've been through less people, less experiences, there's more purity, there's more innocence, there's more softness. You're more excited about love, you're more joyful. And because you have less baggage, you're more likely to pour more into the relationship. You haven't had to unglue yourself from a bond that you created or multiple times over. You have a clean slate to start fresh with. One man or one woman, the clean slate, they can give each other 100% of who they are. There's nothing in their mind holding them back. There's less baggage. If you're each other's first and only, you're not single dads, you're not single mums, you're not someone else's ex, you're not going to be their third or their fifth or their 12th. You're each other's first and only. I know that's not the reality for everyone, but that is God's standard. The less baggage there is, the happier you're both going to be. And when you're younger, statistically, you're going to have less partners, less relationships, less breakups. Better to start. The next thing is, there's less risk of falling into sexual sin when you marry young. Well, the younger you do it, you're going to satisfy each other's sexual needs. There's less risk of you spending more time where you might stumble into pornography or fetishes or sexual fantasies or masturbation or degeneracy or a hookup lifestyle. Because when you're young and your body starts to change, and that's when young men and women should be guided to commit to one another. And they can grow old together and you can enjoy each other physically as you grow old together. That's why it's so important. The sooner you do it, the better it is. Thirdly, having a good woman by your side as you build your wealth. See, one of the reasons men are told don't get married when you're young is to focus on yourself, because women only wait for you in the finish line, which is not true. A good woman, when she's young, she wants to build with you financially. Not to mention, if you're only making money for yourself, you're always going to be limited, or you risk of falling into vanity. But when you have a woman by your side and you love her, you have a reason to work harder because you're doing it for her. It's directed outward. It's not for yourself anymore. So you're going to work harder. You have a reason now. You're inspired in the right way, and it's honorable because you want to provide for her, not just for yourself. And knowing that you're having that good woman as you're building your life, you're going to trust her more. She's going to be worthy of that honor. But if you already made it as a man, you're going to have to, test that woman a little bit more, wondering, is she really with me for me? But when she's with you as you're building everything up and she loves you for you, remember, marriage-minded women will happily live within their husband's means. If she finds you attractive and you have the same values, she's happy to be by your side because she loves you. Right? Isn't that much better than having to build your whole career or business when you're alone, all that stress? No woman by your side, making it harder on yourself. Not to mention, men that are married make between 4.8 to up to 32% more money than single men. Because these men want to have children, they want to have a family, and they have a reason to grind, not just for themselves. It's selfless. So having a good woman by your side and marrying when you're young, it's beneficial. You get to go through life together, grow old together. All the pitfalls, all the challenges, she's with you through thick and thin when you're young. That's more of a blessing. That's what you want. Okay? And the next reason why it's important to marry young is that you become selfless. Okay? Boundaries. They limit you from being selfish. They limit you from being sinful, from harming others. So having a good woman by your side, she's going to help you be a better man. You're going to help her be a better woman. You now have to live sacrificially for each other. You have a responsibility. You have a duty. You're going to have to control your passions. You have to be loyal, being honorable, keeping your word, being committed, making an effort, courting her, being attentive to her. You have to show up now and be a man. It's not just about you anymore. You can't be lazy and let yourself go. You have to do your best for her, live and honor her. And when you're living for a reason outside of yourself, you have meaning. Men and women are made for each other. You're going to be happier that way. And doing it when you're young, even better. There's a higher chance of you being more selfless, being more giving, being more loving as a man. You'll be more masculine when you marry the right woman, of course, when you're young. If you're young and you marry the wrong woman, that's on you. I can't do anything there to help you. But if you marry right when you're young, you'll be more selfless. Okay? And finally, finding a good woman when you're young, in your 20s, and making that a priority, you have a higher likelihood of upholding your standard and committing to her out of genuine love, out of genuine desire and love. And it's mutual. Because think about it, you're young, you're going to look the best you're ever going to look statistically, youth-wise, virility-wise. She's young and fertile. She looks the most feminine and pretty she'll ever look. You're giving each other those best years. So statistically, if you have less baggage, there's less risk of falling into these sexual sin. And you find her attractive, she finds you attractive. You don't settle, you want each other. You have the same things and values in common. You both want to commit from a young age. You can grow together and honor each other. And you get to enjoy each other's love for the rest of your lives and build a legacy together and children and a family. Isn't that a blessing? And that's the benefit of doing it when you're young. Because if you are going for a woman who, she doesn't have baggage, she's been through less men or no men, then you're statistically going to be her first draft pick, the man she really wants. But the older you get, you choose an older woman, Mr. Handsome has gone by. She's going to take whatever's there. Makes it harder. But when you're younger, you both want each other. You both are each other's first choice. You want each other. You're not settling. You're not lowering your standards. Then the commitment is worth it. And that is exactly what. It is important to marry young. And I believe, to all the men watching who are single in your 20s, now is the time to fill in your knowledge gap and learn about relationships and find yourself a good woman. There is a reason why our grandparents, some people in our parents' generation, and going back 3, 4, 5 generations and beyond, men and women were happier and more fulfilled. Because from a young age, men and women were married, they were honoring each other, they loved each other, and they grew old together. And the longer you leave it, the more bitter you become to the opposite sex, the more selfish you are, the harder it is for you to bond, the more problems and baggage you come with. But when you do it as a younger man, the higher the odds of you being successful. Can you still succeed when you're older? Yes, but it'll be harder and it'll take you more work. Regardless, do the best you can with where you are at right now and take marriage seriously. With that said, I hope you've enjoyed the video. This is the first part of debunking modern dating advice. And now you have the answer. Why you shouldn't get married at 30 and why it's better to be married in your 20s. And I will be continuing on making more videos in this series of other modern dating advice that's wrong. And then I'll give you the correct courtship advice that you should apply to your life. With that said, share this video with anybody you believe needs to hear this. And if you'd like to work with me personally and join my relationship mastery course, book a free 30-minute call with me to see if you're eligible to apply. All the links are in the description. Have a wonderful day. God bless all of you and your families.